X-Men. The Last Stand begins in 1986 with Charles Xavier and Eric Lyncher meeting Jean Grey for the first time. They have come to enroll Jean in their school. Jean's parents appreciate their school, but they don't know how they will treat Jean's illness there. This confuses Eric because Jean's parents think she is sick. The two come to talk to Jean and then they come to know about her powers. Eric is shocked to see this, and Xavier asks her if she wants to control her powers or let them control her. A scene from 10 years later is shown, where a man named Warren Worthington II is worried about his son. His son Warren Jr. has been locked in the bathroom for a long time. When the father goes inside to see his son, he finds out that his son is also a mutant because he was crying and trying to cut off his wings. Meanwhile, in the near future, Logan and the other X-Men are fighting some robots. In this fight, Storm suggests a plan to stop those robots, but Logan has a different way and he decapitates a robot in his own way. Then it is revealed that all this was being done through a simulation. The simulation ends. Storm gets upset and reminds Logan that this was a defense class, to which Logan instinctively replies that attack is the best defense. Meanwhile, a fight breaks out between Rog and Bobby as Kitty hugs Bobby to save him from the attack that happened earlier in the class. Rog expresses her disappointment at not being able to touch her lover without harming him. Meanwhile, we are introduced to Hank, who is a mutant himself. And soon he goes to a meeting with high-ranking officials of mutant affairs. The officials inform him that they have captured Mystique and are planning to imprison her in new hideouts from where she will not be able to escape. Mystique is questioned about Eric's whereabouts, but she keeps changing her appearance, frustrating the investigator, and then she defeats all the guards present. The president explains why he can no longer interact with mutants, and adds that Mystique was caught trying to steal a file from Worthington Labs regarding antibodies. The file contains information on how to eliminate mutants' powers. He informs Hank that they need his diplomatic skills to calm the mutants, who may react violently to this news. Meanwhile, Xavier is giving a lecture to his class when he suddenly senses something is wrong and quickly dismisses them. He goes to Storm, who is acting under the weather due to her mood, and she becomes confused as to why the mutants are hiding. Xavier reassures her that they are not hiding, but advises her to be cautious. He reveals that Scott has changed since Jean's death, making him think he might have a chance to take Xavier's place, which makes her suspect that he is hiding something. They go to the office and are pleasantly surprised to see Hank there, who tells them about the antibody, and Xavier informs them that the Worthington Company is holding a press conference to publicly announce it. During the conference, he says that mutants are essentially humans with a disease and that they can now be cured. This piques Rogue's interest, and she rushes to Xavier's office to see if she can be cured. However, Storm tells her that there is nothing wrong with being a mutant. A meeting takes place between mutants, resulting in two opposing groups. One believes that the government wants to exterminate them through a cure, while the other believes that a cure is an alternative, allowing them to tell the government about it. Eric comes on stage and warns them that the Holocaust has begun, giving them the choice to either wait out the inevitable genocide or take action to stop it. There, she meets a mutant named Callisto, who tells her that she can not only move fast, but can also sense other mutants and their abilities. Eric then asks her to find Mystique for him. On the other hand, Hank visits Jimmy, known as the Leech, a mutant whose power automatically deactivates nearby mutations. Hank is surprised because being near Jimmy gives him the chance to see his own human hand for the first time in years. Scott, still reeling from Jean's death, drives to her gravesite at Alkali Lake. Suddenly, Jean appears, much to Scott's joy, but she unexpectedly kills him during a kiss. Xavier immediately senses something is wrong, so he sends Storm and Logan to the lake, where they find floating rocks, Scott's glasses, and an unconscious Jean. After returning, Xavier tells Logan that Jean is the only Category 5 mutant he has ever encountered, and that her potential is limitless. He explains that when she was a child, he created a mental barrier to separate her from her subconscious powers, creating a dual personality. A conscious side that can control her powers and a passive side called the Phoenix, which has tremendous destructive powers. Logan becomes angry, and argues that Xavier had no right to suppress Jean's powers against her will. However, Xavier defies him and refuses to justify his actions. Meanwhile, the treatment center in the city finally opens. It begins with Warren Jr., but when he is prevented from receiving an antibody injection, he uncomfortably reveals his mutant form, saying he does not want this. He leaps out of a window and flies over the mutants waiting for the cure, while others gather to protest. Meanwhile, Mystique is being taken to another prison by Trask, the head of the Department of Homeland Security. Eric intercepts the convoy and easily frees Mystique, before checking the list of other mutant prisoners and freeing several men and Juggernaut. However, one guard senses enough to use the cure as a weapon against Eric. Mystique is confronted by him, and this deactivates her powers. Eric leaves her, saying she is no longer one of the mutants. Upon hearing of the incident, Hank resigns from his government role to fully support his kind, as the decision to weaponize the cure was made without his consent. At the same time, Jean awakens, and Logan realizes she is not the woman he knew before, as she confesses to killing Scott. She becomes so mentally unstable that she asks him to take her own life, but her other personality emerges, pushing Logan away and fleeing the room. Meanwhile, Eric tells his companions that he is going to use the weapon, which is injected with a cure, to recruit more people to his team. Callisto then reveals that she has sensed a massive 5th-grade mutant power, much more powerful than Eric. He instructs them to find her. Meanwhile, Xavier learns that Phoenix has awakened and left the mansion to return to her childhood home. He rushes to her but finds Eric there as well. The two of them go inside, and Xavier tells Jean that he only wants to protect her, but Eric suggests a different way. He explains that Xavier has forced Jean to suppress her power for too long, and now she needs to be free. The house vibrates, causing the X-Men to try to break in, but Eric's fellow mutants stop them outside. Xavier remains hopeful and tells Jean to return home, insisting that he is her family, but Jean refuses to let Xavier take over her mind. The Phoenix then reappears, destroys the house, vaporizes Xavier in front of Logan, and leaves with Eric. Logan and Storm mourn her, and an emotional funeral is held at the Institute. Later that night, Kitty cries over the loss, realizing how lonely she is without Xavier. To cheer her up, Bobby freezes the fountain for her to ice skate in, making Rogue jealous. Rogue leaves, but Logan catches up with her and asks where she is going. She admits that she is afraid of her powers and yearns for human relationships. Logan assures her that he will support her decision to get the cure if she is certain about it. Meanwhile, with Jean, Eric plans to go to the treatment center to kill Jimmy. While thinking about it, a mutant reveals that they shouldn't have killed Xavier, and Eric admits that his biggest regret is that Xavier had to die to keep their dream alive. In another part of the school, Bobby asks Logan, Storm, and Hank what will happen to the Institute now. Hank suggests that the school would be better off shutting down, but Bobby argues that many mutants have nowhere else to go. Warren Jr. arrives and says he heard it's a safe haven for mutants. Storm immediately takes control and declares that the school will remain open, and even finds a room for Warren. Meanwhile, Logan is at Xavier's grave when he begins to hear Jean's voice in his head, similar to the one Scott heard. He quickly packs up and prepares to leave, but Storm stops him. She tells him that Jean killed Scott and Xavier. It's time for Logan to realize that she's not the same Jean anymore, but Logan insists that there's still hope, and that he wants Jean to come out of her Phoenix state. Storm tells him that she's decided to side with Eric, and it's now Logan's turn to choose which side he wants to side with. Bobby goes to the treatment center to look for Rogue, but doesn't find her. Just then, Pyro appears and launches the first attack on Eric's behalf. Later, Eric releases a video in which he declares that this initial attack is just a warning that as long as a cure is available, the war will continue, and that he will make sure that cities are no longer safe. He also suggests that other mutants support his mission. The president claims it is a matter of national security and sends soldiers armed with a cure to Worthington Laboratories, saying he will give Eric the war he wants. The army is mobilized, ensuring all metal weapons are removed and replaced with plastic weapons injected with the cure. Meanwhile, Logan arrives in the forest after hearing Jean's voice and encounters several mutants associated with Eric. He manages to defeat them and dons a hood to blend in with the mutant army. Eric gives a speech about his weapon aimed at Jean and boldly declares that they will use the cure against any mutant who opposes them. Jean heads into the forest with Logan following, but Eric quickly pins him against a tree, claiming he can detect Logan's adamantium from a distance. Eric insists that he is not holding Jean against her will, but Logan argues that Eric does not understand the situation. When Logan refuses to leave without Jean, Eric forcibly throws him into the forest. Meanwhile, a bitter Mystique, now powerless, gives the address of Eric's military base to the FBI, who raid it, but they only find that the human heat signatures found are several men and clones of him. The president realizes it was a trap and questions Eric and his army's whereabouts. The next morning, Eric instructs his men to prepare for the attack. Meanwhile, Logan quickly returns to the Institute and informs Storm that they are preparing for an assault on Alcatraz. They all get ready, and Logan tells Hank that Eric has an army backing him up. Bobby reveals that only 6 of them are ready for battle, and Logan admits their lack of numbers. However, he insists that if they don't take action, everything Xavier fought for will be lost, which they cannot allow. On the other side, the Golden Gate Bridge shakes violently, stopping all traffic. People flee, believing it to be an earthquake, and families cower in fear. Eric brings his mutants to the bridge, then lifts the entire structure and takes them to Alcatraz, the small island where the cure center is located. Upon arriving, Callisto tells Eric that the boy is in the southeast corner of the building. Pyro then instructs the mutants to proceed and demolish the building. When the powerful mutants try to advance, Eric stops them and says the pawns should go first. The human forces launch an attack by injecting the cure, targeting the bridge, but Eric uses metal to protect them and orders Arclight to fire his shockwave powers at the plastic weapons. The mutants maintain the lead until the X-Men arrive to confront them. Storm uses her powers to push the mutants back while the others join the fight. The 6 X-Men form a line, and Logan instructs everyone to prevent any mutants from crossing the line. Eric labels them traitors and orders the mutants to eliminate them. The X-Men easily deal with the normal mutants, leading Eric to send Callisto after Storm. Although Callisto uses her speed to gain the upper hand, Storm proves too powerful. Eric then instructs Juggernaut to pursue Jimmy and kill him. Juggernaut breaks through the wall and enters the research facility, leaving everyone behind. Hank declares that Juggernaut is after the boy, and Kitty quickly goes after him. She uses her ability to pass through walls and grabs Juggernaut, pushing him halfway into the floor, trapping him. However, she underestimates Juggernaut's strength as he breaks through the ground. He pursues her, knocking down walls until she decides to hide near one. As Juggernaut runs past her, he becomes confused as he cannot find Kitty. Meanwhile, Warren and his secretary are trapped by 3 mutants, including Arlight and Spike, who ask if he is the one who created the cure. After he confirms, the girls drag him away while Spike restrains the secretary, who pleads for Warren's safety. Meanwhile, Kitty finds Jimmy, but Jimmy tells her that her abilities will have no effect on him. Juggernaut bursts into the room and attacks them, but he foolishly gets hit by a wall with full force. Jimmy's ability to deactivate mutants causes his powers to fail. Spike and the girls take Warren to the roof and throw him off, but his son arrives in time to save him with his flight powers. Meanwhile, Storm beats up Callisto until she falls unconscious. Eric decides to end the conflict by picking up cars one by one, which Pyro ignites with his fire powers and throwing them at the Legion and the X-Men. The constant explosions cause massive destruction, and while trying to hide, the X-Men find some unused healing injections. Logan instructs Bobby to deal with Pyro while he confronts Eric. However, due to the adamantium in Logan's body, Eric can control him. This time, Logan serves as a distraction, allowing Hank to inject Eric and turn him back into a human. He tells Jean that they will do the same to all mutants, while Logan tells her to return home. For a moment, it seems she will agree, but just as the military injects her with a cure, the Phoenix appears and vaporizes them all before destroying the entire island. The mutants help everyone leave the island, and Eric regrets giving Jean full control. Everyone leaves, but Logan stays as his healing abilities revive him while she vaporizes him. He tells her that he could die for her, which brings Jean back, and she pleads with him to save her. He professes his love for her before he digs his claws into her. The island calms down and Jean dies, this time forever. Later, the school reopens, and Bobby holds Rogue's hand as she decides to give up her powers while Hank is appointed as the United Nations ambassador. Eric is alone at a chess table and tries to use his powers on a metal pond, and to his surprise, the pond moves slightly. Meanwhile, it is revealed that Charles Xavier transferred his consciousness into a comatose patient just before he died, keeping his mind alive.